Hello everybody, my name is Josh. You might have seen me on the channel before if you've watched some of our videos covering isopods, but today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on arachnid species, specifically in Avicularia. We're going to be doing a build video for you, kind of showing what we would want to replicate within an enclosure that closely resembles something within their native habitats of the South Americas. They're commonly found, within Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Suriname, French Guiana, or Guyana. A lot of distribution within South America. Really popular species within the hobby, so we thought we'd finally get to do a small build video for y'all about them. Today we're going to be starting with what I would include in a build so that you have a good idea before I just jump into it. Terrarium substrate, your sphagnum moss, leaf litter, isopods, soil additives, your woods for creating that nice treescape. Being an arboreal species, you definitely want a nice dense canopy to be recreated within a tank, as well as nice foliage to kind of give them lots of anchor points for building web tunnels. This species is commonly known for building really dense tunnels and intricate systems. Another small little thing I wanted to do for this species specifically, because they're commonly known as Pinktoe Tarantulas, is I included a lot of plants that had some pink in there, so lots of pink hues. We got this alocasia with a pink stem. We got this arrowhead vine that's got pink foliage, cryptanthus, as well as some bromeliads, just to kind of give lots of pops of color, as well as kind of drive homage to the name of the species. So just to get started, the first thing that we'll go ahead and do is get the substrate base in there. So here we do have our Terrarium in a bag, but just for y'all to be able to see. Here at the Bldg, we do try to use as least amount of plastic as we can. So instead of opening that one up, we're gonna go ahead and use a bucket here that I got. And then I'll just go ahead and get the right amount in there. So the Terrarium, I'll give you a quick little brief overview of it. It is kind of a specialized substrate for tarantulas. It has nice loamy consistency, really soft, but also has pieces throughout it that give it lots of aeration as well as good drainage flow. So you'll see some of the charcoal pieces in there and stuff like that. And with Avicularia being a arboreal species, I'm not gonna put in a super dense amount of substrate. Typically, even arboreal species, whenever they're younger, they will create like a half burrow, half arboreal setup. But this one is going to build all of its webs in the canopy, in the treetop. So I'm just putting a soil deep enough for the plant roots to thrive, and that's pretty much it. What I like to do when making the substrate layers is first I'll put in all the dry ingredients, and then after that I'll go ahead and add moisture, because when the substrate gets wet it tends to stick a lot to the glass, to your arms, to your gloves. So I'll go ahead and add in the sphagnum moss and some broken up leaf litter and things like that, and then we'll go ahead and mist it. So here, whenever I'm putting the sphagnum moss in, I will just kind of try to break up any larger chunks that I feel, kind of rip it up into smaller pieces so that it mixes into the soil a little bit easier. With a smaller build like this, I won't use too much of the spag bag, but you will have a good amount for any future builds that you want to do, or if you ever choose to, renew some of the substrate in there or anything, if you want to use it for planting, whenever you're planting up here. And I'll just give it a good mix, get some of that sphagnum moss in there. And then from there, I'll go ahead and add in some Bioactive, as well as our Soil Cal Plus. And then once it's mixed up, I'll just kind of level it out a little bit, get a nice even surface to work with. I'll try to condense it a little bit by giving it small pats. If you go ahead and give it some pats, that prevents a lot of your hardscape from moving. And then one thing that I did forget to mention that you may have noticed, I went ahead and I siliconed in this cork background that we sell. I thought that it would be a really nice touch just because the tarantulas are an arboreal species, so this gives you a nice background for them to be able to climb up on. Something that they can feel that's a little more tactile than glass. But I did that before because the silicone does take a couple days to cure. If you do want to add in a background, go ahead and do that a day or two before you decide to do a build. So the last thing that we're going to go ahead and add to the bottom layer of the tank is going to be our leaf litter. And the one that we went with today is the one that's included in our Pinktoe kit. This is our Colombian cacao leaf litter. Kind of more on topic because it is from Colombia, so the South America is focusing on this tarantula specifically. And I'll crumple up a good amount of them on top of the substrate, but we'll save some for after we've done the hardscape and the plants, just to kind of add a little bit more. This crumpling will help with the isopods, breaking it down a little bit faster. And I'll mix some of that in, and then we'll move on to hardscape. We can move on to the fun part, creating the architecture of our tarantula's enclosure. One thing I do want to mention is that this enclosure is fairly large for most people's standards, but it's important to recognize that a lot of the times within the hobby, we do have standards that are the base of what you want to do for your animal, but you can exceed that. You might not want to put a baby sling in something this big because there comes more risk with that, being that they might, get lost or kind of shove themselves into a crevice where you might not be able to know if they're eating properly. But with a tarantula that's 4.5 inches, we feel pretty confident here at the Bldg that we can watch them and give them everything they need. It's nice to give them essentially a penthouse. We'll go ahead and get started with that. And I really picked out this piece because I like picking out driftwood pieces that have a lot of texture. So go ahead and put that there. Felt like it was a nice strong base. Dig it into the soil a little bit. And let me take this off so I have more workability. Get this nice and sturdy since it is going to be the base for every other piece that I add in. This is one of the most fun parts of building. You really get to be creative with how wood pieces fit together and almost keep it like a little puzzle. This one I really enjoyed because it has this hole here, which kind of can serve as a hide. Or you can use it as a makeshift pot for plants if you have, bromeliad. Solidify that place with something else. I feel like that covers it up a little bit too much. Yeah, that's cool. So I'll go ahead. I've added a lot of depth to the tank where your tarantula can come out forward, stay in back, maybe even go in these bottom parts, but you still want to give them something where they feel a little more hidden. So that's where I brought some of these cork flaps. Your tarantula can feel nice and tucked in whenever it's in your tank. I tend to stay away from things like complete tubes with tarantulas because when it comes to rehousing, it can be a little bit of a hassle to deal with a tarantula lodging itself in the middle of a big tube. Here we'll go ahead and see which one of these I want to work with. Sometimes you just gotta fiddle with stuff. Use multiple anchor points, like here I got it pushing against the cork wall, and then I got it pushing against this piece, and then I got it pushing against the glass. Now that the hardscape is done, I think I'm gonna start working with some of the plants I have here. So I'll go ahead and get started on depotting these, de-dirting them, and then getting them in there. So now that we've gotten the plants a little cleaned off, we can go ahead and start planting them. I did remove a couple leaves off of this just to get it to fit in here. Little guy. And I'll set him here, dig out a little spot for him. Get the roots nice and planted. And then I'll take some of this substrate and just bury up the roots. When you see pictures of Avicularia in their natural habitat, a lot of the times they will actually create webs underneath leaves or even create tunnels with leaves. So I thought it would be cool to give them this option in this corner. Come in here. The reason that I want so many plants is to provide a density to the space that will help create more ambient humidity. Here. And right now I'm just trying to get all the roots covered so that the plant doesn't die of shock. Now I kind of want to move on to some of the plants that can survive within a canopy without soil. So those being Cryptanthus and bromeliads. These are really cool. They are able to hold water in their axils. So it can also help kind of drive up a little bit of ambient humidity from that evaporation of that water within their centers. So usually with tropical species, I really love to keep bromeliads. And again, like I was saying, this little hole here, I think in order to prevent our tarantula from going in there and hiding, I'll go ahead and pop this bromeliad in there. We'll see if we can add one or two more in here. I feel like this corner could use one. Maybe right there. I feel like one more might be a little too much. Let's see. Maybe if I can get it right in here. About 95% done. There are a couple little things that I want to add, which are here, are nut pods. These are some of the more, exotic biodegradables that you can go with. I'll go ahead and figure out which one of these I want to use. I really love the lotus pods, so try to get this one in here. There's a super cool spiral cone. Love the texture on it. I'll throw in two of these right here in the center and maybe just one right here. They are pear pods. And so here I got a 50 count of dwarf white isopods, and then I have one tropical springtail culture. With these new clay cultures, you can literally just take them and flick them in there. A bunch of them will come out. They don't stick to the clay super well. And then the isopods, I'll go ahead and just take them back here in this corner. I'm gonna mist it. Misting is mostly gonna be a matter of gauging how moist your substrate is. You don't want to overly wet substrate. Here in Texas and Houston, we have a very humid environment. So I only mist my tarantula enclosures maybe once every week and a half. But since this is a brand new tank, I'm gonna go ahead and saturate the substrate just a little bit. And now that we've gone over, plenty of the build and some fun little facts, we'll go ahead and put the actual tarantula in the enclosure and cover some of the husbandry as well as temperament of the species. So now that we got the station kind of cleaned up a little bit, I did want to transfer her here. This is Thumbalina, our bio dude Avicularia. As I was explaining a little bit earlier within the video, you can see they're very heavy webbers, creating really nice, intricate, and really interesting to look at webs. So you got this really nice small tunnel, this huge one that she loves to reside in, and then all within the top, she's made this touch-sensitive web that they use for hunting, for ambushing their prey. They can feel all the little walks. I'll go ahead and try and be really soft with her. She's very docile, being an Avicularia. This species in general is not very defensive. They're very popular for beginner keepers because of a couple reasons. They tend to handle a little bit better than most tarantulas, but again, I only would recommend handling in times like this. You don't want to subject your animal to too much handling. Another thing is, they can't flick hairs. They do have urticating hairs, but they have type 2 urticating hairs, which means they would have to rub them on you, which is almost their second to last resort. Their first to last resort, their first thing that they'll do, which you'll likely see here, is they will actually poop on you to try and use as a defense mechanism. We'll go ahead and see if that happens here. I'll just come in and try to guide her the way I want her to go. Softly. She has those pink toes that are common with all other pink toes, Avicularia monotrix, Avicularia purpurea, all these little pink little toe pads. Some are more noticeable than others, but this one definitely a bright little pop of pink. And we'll go ahead and let her explore. Cool, so that kind of covers it for making a bioactive enclosure for a larger, more mature Avicularia. If you want to see more videos like that, feel free to subscribe to our channel. Visit our Instagram, our website, our Facebook group, the blog, anything like that. If you have any questions about other tarantulas, about other animals, about anything revolving around bioactive enclosures. I've been the other Josh. And the dude abides.